The saga begins in 1977 with Star Wars, which tells us right off the bat that it's actually set a long time ago, so we're in a distant past in relation to Earth time, and our opening crawl tells us that this is actually Episode 4, and it's titled A New Hope, and gives us a quick rundown on how things are set up in this universe. Quick note that this is my first timeline to take place outside of Earth time, so there's no date keeping in the traditional sense, so what we're going to do is refer to the events of this film as Year X. We meet major players right away with R2-D2, C-3PO, Darth Vader, and Princess Leia and her buns. I'm kind of flustered that I can only find the special editions for this because I'd rather have old school dewbacks, but oh well. Luke appears and they talk about staying one more year on Tatooine, so timekeeping seems to be the same, although I'm not quite sure how they measure 1 year since it's one Earth trip around the sun, and there's multiple suns here, and I'm sure their closeness to that is different than ours. And yeah, I know it's a space movie, but things like this are important to the timeline guy. Ben Kenobi appears, as well as our first look at a lightsaber, and the brilliant Peter Cushing shows up as well. Luke's family gets torched, and Darth meets Leia, although, knowing what we know later, and that he was able to feel the Force in Luke, I'm kind of surprised his Sith senses aren't tingling here. Han Solo and Chewbacca make their big entrance, and this never happens. And the team saves the princess, but Ben is killed in the process. There's a final assault on the Death Star with lots of rebels, including Porkins. Is that his name or a nickname? Because if it's his name, that's a coincidence, but if it's a nickname, he wears it like a badge of honor. Anyway, Luke uses the Force to fire the missile that takes out the small moon, and everyone but Chewie gets a medal because Wookiee discrimination was a thing. This is not real. This never happened. Move along. 3 years later, in 1980, the next entry is released, and we're told that it's Episode 5, entitled The Empire Strikes Back. The rebels, including Luke, Han, and Leia, are holed up on an ice planet called Hoth, and some time has passed since the last film. It's never stated in the actual film, but Outside Canon has placed it as 3 years after A New Hope, so that puts us at X plus 3. Considering that they had enough time to build up the Alliance and set up on a new planet with fortified defenses, and Luke gets some time to get better at using the Force, this seems pretty fair, so we'll go with it. And then this happens. Ooh. After an awesome snow battle, Luke splits from the others and meets Yoda, and we get our first glimpse of Vader's boss, the Emperor. A little bit later, we meet Boba Fett, who has a reputation of being a badass, but we'll see. Han and the crew end up in the Cloud City and meet Lando, smoothest man in the galaxy, who betrays them to Vader, and Boba's there, and he just kind of follows Darth around, and they free Solo and Carbonite. Mr. Fett shoots at Luke like twice and misses, and Luke gets into a final battle with Vader, while Boba just flies away with Han's body, which was literally handed to him, with him not doing anything. He didn't do anything on his own here, except not shoot someone. Luke gets his hand cut off and find out Vader's his father. It's a total down ending, and that's what life is, a series of down endings. We wrap up with the gang in search of Han, and Luke gets a robo-hand. 3 more years later, we're back with Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, and the opening crawl tells us it's a little bit of time has passed, and we see a new, second Death Star being completed. We then see Jabba the Hutt as Luke and the crew attempt to rescue Han, and Luke is sporting a new look. Official Disney canon seems to state that it's a little around a year later, placing us at X plus 4, and come on, special editions? Really? And look, Boba's here? It's a year after delivering Han to Jabba, and he's still just kind of hanging out? They take the gang out to the Sarlacc pit and put Lee in a metal bikini just because, and that's where super badass Boba Fett is taken out accidentally by a partially blind Han Solo and is eaten by the pit. Leia kills Jabba, Luke kills like everybody, and we're finally introduced to the Emperor before Luke makes it back to Dagobah just in time to see Yoda die and learn that he has a sister and that they were hidden away from Vader. So they set about their plan to destroy the new Death Star, which involves running around into little yub-yubs. When Luke tells Leia that she's his sister, she says she's always known, so like, even then? Soon it's all-out war in the skies and the moon, and I really want to hate the Ewoks and their obvious marketing ploy, but holy crap do I love these little guys, and got really sad when this little guy here dies. Luke and Vader have it out again, and Luke gets hand revenge, and the Empire fries him until Darth finally snaps and tosses the old guy to his blue doom. This one guy's death basically kills a whole ship. Darth succumbs to his wounds. They blow up the new Death Star in basically the same way they did the first one, and then everyone celebrates with some ghosts. You'd think it would all be silent until the prequels, but there were two made-for-television Ewok movies in 84 and 85, the first of which was called An Ewok Adventure, but has been released on video as Caravan of Courage, and its follow-up, The Battle for Endor. Both feature Warwick Davis as Wicket, and they appear to take place before Return of the Jedi, as Wicket is definitely younger here, and there's no Imperial presence on the moon. Online sources seem to place it earlier in the same year, marking this X+4, although that would imply that the Death Star was built pretty damn quickly and in less than a year. I guess it's possible the construction could be going on in the sky above, but the family ship makes it there with no landing code, so you'd think the Empire would be alerted to their presence. They do teach Wicket how to speak English, which he doesn't know how to speak in Jedi, though, so either these films are in different continuity, or more likely the family isn't speaking English and they are speaking whatever language is prevalent what planet they're from. And it's just being translated for us, the viewers. It's also possible these films actually take place after Jedi as well, although the series' official canon disagrees with this. I'm mainly including these ones because the second one's decision to recast the father, kill off the mom without even showing her, and then killing off her brother and father, which was pretty ballsy for an obvious kids movie. Everything was quiet until 1999, and we saw the release of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and our crawl tells us that it's a different time with republics and trade federations instead of Empire and Alliance. We immediately meet young Obi-Wan Kenobi and his teacher Qui-Gon. Next we see young Queen Amidala, and then run into the greatest film character of all time, Jar Jar Binks. Much like the Ewoks, I really wanted to hate him and his obvious marketing ploy, but holy crap, yeah, I really hate him. The young Emperor is here, as well as his sidekick Darth Maul, and R2-D2 shows up. The official Star Wars timeline tells us that it's X-32, and we'll look into how that works, but first a poop joke in Star Wars. Little baby Anakin shows up, and he acts. And then we find out that for some reason he actually built C-3PO, and is the product of a freaking virgin birth, and has a high midichlorian count, which is, I guess, Force chromosomes or something. We see a younger Yoda and Sam Jackson, and Anakin is 9 years old here, and according to the film's novelization, Amidala is 14, and that's backed up by the most reliable source of all.
Though he's just 9 and she's 14, yeah.
Anyway, there's a big final battle between robots you don't care about and Gungans you don't care about either, and Darth Maul busts out his double-sided saber, kills Qui-Gon, and then Anakin basically destroys the main enemy ship on accident, and then Maul gets split in two. It wraps up with Obi-Wan taking on Anakin as a student, which I'm sure will do just fine. 3 years later, in 2002, we get Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and its trademark opening crawl lets us know that quite some time has passed since the last one, and there's a bit of a power shake-up, and Palpatine has lots more power. We see Anakin, and he's grown a bit, and he says that it's 10 years later, although Amidala looks the same age, but is 24 here, so we're in X-22. The two begin their awkward courting, and look at a little Jedi. I'm sure everything will be great for them. We then find out that this clone army, who are beta test stormtroopers, are based off a bounty hunter named Jango Fett, and we meet his super cool son Boba, who will grow up to be lame, and I'm sure I'll hear about that in the comments. Eventually they go back to Tatooine, and 3PO is looking more complete and kind of gray, and then we meet young Owen and Aunt Beru, future burning corpses, and their dad is now married to Anakin's mom, but she's been kidnapped by sand people. The always awesome Christopher Lee shows up, and Shmi dies, so the dark side kind of takes over. There's a big final face-off in a combat arena where Jango gets his head chopped off by Sam's other purple lightsaber, which is a step up from getting accidentally killed, like his son. Yoda shows up with a bunch of clones, and Obi and Annie fight Count Dooku, and they really should have thought over that name, and Anakin loses an arm. And then Yoda comes in and flips and flies around. Dooku escapes, Yoda tells us the Clone Wars have begun, and Anakin and his robot arm and the Queen get married. The prequel trilogy comes to a close in 2005 with the Revenge of the Sith, and the opening crawl tells us that it's sometimes later and war is happening, and Palpatine has been kidnapped by a new villain, General Grievous. Time between this one and last one isn't outright stated, but online sources state that it's 3 years, so we're in X-19 here, and that's backed up by the fact that the war has been going on for some time now. In fact, I'm not covering it because it's a TV show, but the Clone Wars animated series happens entirely in between the two movies, so some time is needed, and 3 years seems like a good run. Dooku gets Jango'd, Leia's father shows up, I guess her adoptive father, and Amidala is actually preggers. Palpatine continues to sway Anakin, and then Chewbacca shows up because a whole world full of Wookiees, and of course this one guy has to be wrapped up with people that he'll encounter yet again by sheer chance years later, which seems to be the on-running theme in this series. Grievous shows off his 4 lightsaber skills, but gets blastered, while a Photoshop of Palpatine head kills the Jedi while he's Skeletored, and Anakin helps kill Mace. Anakin kills a bunch of little kids, but they have rat tails, so Palpatine is revealed as the villain Darth Sidious, and what's up with these names? Darth Maul, Darth Sidious, Darth Plagueis, General Grievous. I mean, why not just call the bad guy Lord Balanicus? Finally, Ben and Annie face off while Yoda and Sidious also have it out, leading to Yoda going into exile and Anakin getting legged, and then crispy fried and left for dead. Padme gives birth to Luke and Leia, and Darth Vader is born. They decide to hide away the twins with the leader of Alderaan, and oh yeah, Vader's brother-in-law on the planet he grew up on, because that seems like a perfectly good hiding place. Padme dies, and the Empire begins building the Death Star, which takes them another 19 years to complete, even though the second one only took like 3. So to recap, Anakin starts at age 9, ages to 19, and then 22, so in A New Hope, Vader would be 41 and 45 when he dies. Everything went quiet for 10 years, and it wasn't until 2015's The Force Awakens until we saw more Star Wars action. All pre-release info sets the film at 30 years later, so it's X plus 34 here, and Lucas was no longer involved, and Disney was, and the opening crawl tells us that the Empire is still in action as the First Order, and we meet new villain Kylo Ren, and a secret is hidden inside of a droid. It ends up on a sandy planet, found by a young person with a hidden past. Escape the planet in the Millennium Falcon, meet up with Han and Chewie, meet our new shadowy villain, go to a cantina filled with oddball aliens, Leia and C-3PO show up, and the bad guys have a Death Star, but it's bigger. But the heroes can shut down the shield and other guys can blow it up, and is any of this sounding familiar at all? Eventually it's revealed that Kylo is Han and Leia's son, and he kills his dad, and Rey, Finn, and Kylo have a face-off in the snow, and an X-Wing destroys the Star Death Star killer. Rey wins her fight, and flies off to meet Luke on a Game of Thrones location. 1 year later, we take a new turn in the Star Wars universe with 2016's Rogue One, as we travel back into the series' past with a story that is set right before Episode 4, which places us in like X-1 until X. We learned it very early on that this is a different type of movie, as we get no opening crawl and no traditional theme music. What we do get is a ragtag group of rebels assigned to getting the plans to the Death Star, which we see being completed. Fake Peter Cushing shows up, and we find out that the port that blows up the entire Death Star, which seems very convenient, was actually intentional, a trap laid by an Imperial science officer to bring it down. He gets killed, and then Darth Vader shows up, and a final battle to get the plans sees our heroes die off one by one, but they manage to transmit the plans before they're all killed by a blast from the Death Star. There's no dancing Ewoks here, that's for sure. Vader shows up to kill a bunch of peeps while the rebel ship gets away with Leia in it, setting up the beginning of Episode 4. And so that brings us to 2017's The Last Jedi, which is going to be the second part of the new trilogy. Hopefully it'll be the Empire Strikes Back of the series. Hopefully we'll also find out the secret of Rey, and get to see a lot more Mark Hamill and find out where Luke has been for the past 30 years. So there you have it, 8 movies with a couple of side films and things on the side there as well too, but pretty solid continuity. I think things pretty much make a lot of sense. It's kind of odd doing this one as a timeline, considering there's so many other resources out there that actually state the dates. So I pulled a lot from there. I don't really want to contradict, unless there was something that contradicted, like I do feel as if the Ewok movies don't really make sense within a timeline that is stated out there. I do like to think that they are either after Jedi or a little bit more before when they do say it is. But hey, there you go. That's what it is. But I did really enjoy these ones. Obviously, I don't enjoy the prequels. I do have to admit I'm not exactly a huge Star Wars fan. I was when I was younger, but the prequels kind of destroyed everything that I loved about Star Wars. And I did like Force Awakens, but not as much as everybody else. Although I will say that Rogue One was phenomenal, a great movie. So even if you're not a Star Wars fan, I would suggest checking that one out because it's a great movie. That's about it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll be seeing you again for another couple of weeks. And in the meantime, I've got my Patreon link down below. You can check that out as well. And share the video with your friends. Let them know that I'm here making these things, watching these movies over and over and over again. But that's it. See you next time. Bye.